Hello YouTube, I'm Tallman Brad and we're back in the KingGen 7 Days to Die random world generator software. In the last video I gave you an introduction to some of the advanced settings, and in this video we're going to have a look at this section here. Now today we're actually going to be effectively removing the word random because we're going to specifically create our own world by drawing our own map, including mountains, lakes. Not only that, but we're going to draw exactly where we want our biomes. And it doesn't stop there. We're also going to draw exactly the shape and the location of the cities that we want on the map. Grab yourself a coffee and we'll get on with it. In order to draw our own map, we need to use some photo editing software. Now you can use Photoshop if you like, something like that, but alternatively there is some free photo editing software which is actually very good. It's called GIMP, G-I-M-P, and I'm going to show you how to use that now. But first of all, we need to download it. So I'm in Google and I'll type in GIMP and search for that, and there it is there, the first one, GIMP, GNU Image Manipulation Program. If I click on that, the option at the top here, download, and then I'm going to say download directly. Once it's finished downloading, I'm going to use the button at the side there to choose show in folder. If I double click on it, I'm going to choose install for all users and allow it. I have the English version, and then we'll hit next, and I think we'll have the desktop icon and install. There's our GIMP icon. Now with any photo editing software it can look pretty complicated, but I'm going to explain just what you need to know to be able to do the job at hand. First of all, we'll start a new file. Say file and then new, and I'm going to make the 4K by 4K map just for speed. So the dimensions of that are 4096 by 4096. I'm not changing any of the settings in advanced options. I'm just leaving it exactly as that. Okay. Now it's complaining here about the size of the file, but don't worry about this. It doesn't actually work out to be that size file when you're finished. Just say okay. Now in a height map for 7 Days to Die, black is Bedrock. So this is the absolute lowest we can go. Now if you think of Bedrock being 0 and the absolute highest point you can have as being 100, I've found that roughly 30 is a good height for cities to spawn, and anything around 20 or below will be below water. So I'm going to set a base level for the entire map, which will be a level of 30. So how do we do that? If you look in the top left hand side here, you can see there's the bucket fill tool, and these are the two colors that are available to us at the minute, white with the left button and black with the right button. So I want to change that white to a level of 30. So at the minute we're on fully white, and you can see here the luminance level is maximum, so that's 100. So what we want is 30 as a starting point here. I'll hit enter. So now our left click is changed to a value of 30% gray. We're on the bucket tool. If I click in here, it'll fill all of that with that gray. So at this point, if we went back into the KingGen software and loaded up this image, we would just get a completely flat area and it would be able to place cities anywhere on it. But we need some sort of texture and shape to this. So the next thing I'm going to do is to remove some of this to expose the black underneath to give us a sort of an island shape. Now to do that, I'm going to use the eraser tool. I'm going to choose a different shape from a tool brush. I'm going to have that one there. Now it's very small, so this will take ages. So if we look over to this side here, you can see there's the size. If I just pull that slider up and we'll have a look, that's not a bad size. I'm going to go a little bit bigger. That'll do. And let's just test it out by erasing some of this area here. So you can see what it's done there. It's exposed through to Bedrock, and it's got a graduation going up to the ground level. So that means that we should get a nice slope going down to the water. If when you try it, it comes out too solid like this, you're going to get a sharp drop straight off the edge of your map into the water, and it won't look very good. To fix this, you just simply need to lower your hardness level. And you can see now, when I do it, we get the nice graduation, which will give us a nice sloped coastline. Okay, I'm going to undo that. And let's draw our basic island. something like that, and it's got its own couple of little islands off the side. But this is completely flat, so we want some mountains and we want some lakes in it. Now, a simple way I've found to do this is to use the dodge and burn tool. Now, it shows up by default as a little finger. It's actually a smudge tool, but if I right click on that, I can choose dodge and burn. The dodge and burn tool will allow us to lighten certain areas or darken certain areas. If I press with the left button over here, just the once, you can see I've created a sort of a light spot. I'm just going to zoom in by holding Control using the mouse wheel. There we go. You can see we would end up with a gradual gradient up to a peak. So that would show up as a little hill in the map. If I hold down Control and press the left button, it does the reverse, so it makes it slightly darker. So you can see what's coming here. If I press this several times, round in a sort of a pattern like that, there we go. We're creating a bit of a mountain range. If I hold the button down, I can just draw lines like that, but the more times you tap on it, the lighter it gets, which means the higher the mountain will be. Now over here we've started to create a lower area, so if I zoom back in and if I hold down Control and press around here a few times, I can make a darker area. So we'll have a dip in the ground, and I'm going to hold down the left mouse button and wiggle around there, pressing a few times, and each time you click it gets darker and darker as you overlap, and eventually that's going to go down to bedrock, so somewhere in there will be water. So if we exported this into KingGen now and got it to generate a map, it would probably do quite a good job, but it doesn't look that realistic. What I want to do is add some other features to this, and I'd like to show you another tool to help us do that. If we go back to where the dodge and burn tool is, if I right click on it, I'm going to change back to smudge. And this time with that tool selected, I can go into somewhere in the darker area here, hold down the left button and drag it in, and it will start pulling in the dark parts into the map, which will just make it look that little bit more realistic. We might even get some rivers coming in when it's rendered. So of course we can go the other way. We could pull some of the land out into where the water's going to be. And the same with the mountains. We can drag the mountains out to give a more gradual slope. Or we could cut into the mountain by dragging the grey into it. So in order to be able to load this up as a height map in the KingGen software, we need to export it in a certain format. So let's have a look at doing that now. Go into the File menu and choose Export. I'm going to choose where I want it to save, and on the desktop I've created a folder called KingGen Map, which is where I'm storing all my maps that I'm working on. And then from here we need to give it a name. I'm just going to call this test, and it's at a base level of 30, so I'm going to put the 30 at the end just to remind me. Then I want to export it. So this part is very important to get it to work correctly. The height map in KingGen needs to be a grayscale image. It needs to be the same size as your map, which is why we drew this one at 4096 by 4096, because that's the size map that I'm going to make. Here where it says automatic pixel format, I'm going to choose 8-bit gray. Now I'm also going to reduce the compression. It's maximum compression at the minute, so I'm going to bring that down because I don't want it to introduce any blockiness anywhere, so I'm just going to bring that down a little bit. I'm not changing anything else here. This is all as default. Then I'm going to say export. And now we can leave this program open in the background because we're going to be coming back to it. I can go into the KingGen software, make sure it's on 4K because that's the size of the map that we've just drawn. I'm going to go into advanced settings. Everything here is on default. I haven't changed anything from the installation. And down in this advanced customization section, I'm going to custom height map, and I'm going to say select. And then I'm just going to look for, there it is, test 30. Click on that and open it. I'm not touching anything else here. I'm just going to go back, and then I'm going to say generate world. And there's our map. So it's our hand-drawn map. You can see where we've got the lake, and I dragged it through, and the mountain as well. But it's a little bit textured. It's a bit sort of staggered there around the side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to redo this, but I'm going to change one of the settings in advanced settings. Height map smoothing. If I just change that to little, and redo it. Now when we have a look at the map, you can see that the edges aren't quite as staggered as they were before. You probably wouldn't notice this in the game. So if it does bother you when you're playing the game, then all we need to do is to go back into the height map smoothing and choose medium or large and redo it. There, that it's nice and smooth with no steps. So now the map's created, we want to tell it exactly where we want certain biomes to be. How do we do that? Let's go back into the GIMP software. Now one of the reasons why this software is so useful is because you can create multiple layers. I'm going to add another layer on top of this one. Think of it like a transparent sheet, and I'm going to draw on that transparent sheet these new biomes. So to create a new layer, I'm just simply going to right click in the area where the layers are. You can see there's our background layer, and go up to new layer. I'm going to give it a name just for ease. I'm going to call it Biomes and hit enter. Make sure we're on the biomes layer, and then we're going to draw in some biomes. So each of the biomes have specific color codes that you need to copy exactly. The snow biome, for example, is completely white. So when we choose a completely white brush and paint with that and export it into the KingGen software, it knows exactly where to put the snow. The desert's a different color, and the burnt forest, and so on. So let's start with our snow area. We're on the biomes layer on the right hand side there. So I'm going to start by choosing the paintbrush tool. I'm going to make sure that the opacity is all the way up so it's solid when it paints. And make sure the hardness is all the way up to 100, and the force. For the size of the brush, I'll just make that a little bit larger. And if I go over here, you can see that's the size I'm going to be painting with. And if I just test it just to make sure that it's a solid circle as opposed to a one with soft edges, that's absolutely fine. So that's going to work great. I'm going to use Ctrl and Z to get rid of that. And I want to paint in white, and I'm just going to paint over this area here. So let's swap these two colors by using this arrow here. Now when I do a left click, it's painting white over the top. Now it doesn't matter that it goes over the water area, it knows what it's doing. I'll just cover that in white. Now I want to do a desert section, so let's find the desert color. If I click on the square here that's showing white at the minute, I can tell it the specific color that I want. I need to make sure I'm on the 0 to 255, and then I'm going to type in the code for the desert, and that's 255.228.119, and hit enter. Now don't worry if you can't remember these numbers, they'll be in the description. So we hit OK. Now we can see our brush color has changed to what will be the desert, and I'm going to draw in the desert area now. I'm thinking to leave a little bit of green, and then it'll turn to a desert underneath that. And I think I might have a little patch along there that's desert too. All right, let's draw in another biome. This time I'm going to do the wasteland. So the wasteland colors are 255.168.0, and hit enter. And now we have the wasteland color. OK that. So when I draw now, I'm going to be drawing in the wasteland. I think I'll make this island a wasteland. And let's have this section here wasteland as well. Then the last one is the burnt forest. Let's try that out as well. So we'll click on the color again, and the code for the burnt forest is 1860255, and hit enter. It's a sort of purple color. If I say OK. And I think what I'll do here is I'll draw around these lakes with the burnt biome. So now we need to be able to export just this color section to a file that we can load into the KingGen software. So let me show you how to do that. The first thing we need to do is switch off this background layer first of all. So there's the background there. If I hit the eye, it doesn't show it, and it's just showing that this is transparent. Now I can export just this layer by going into File and Export As, and I'll give it the name Test Biomes. Go to click on export, but there's one very important section we need to change here where it says 8-bit grey. We now need to change that to 16-bit RGB. So we only use the 8-bit grey to create the height map. For the rest of the things that we're going to be doing, we'll be using 16-bit RGB. I'm leaving the compression level low just so I don't get any blocks. And then I'm going to say export. So let's go back into the KingGen software, go back into advanced settings, and here we see custom biomes map. If I click select, I can now choose my test biomes file, open that up, and then go back and say generate world. And there we go, that's worked very well. So the snow biome covers the area that we said. We've got the desert running around. We've got the wasteland up there and on this island, and then we've got the burnt biomes around the lakes and a little bit of desert there. So it's exactly as we set it out to be. Now this doesn't look like a bad map. It's got quite a big city going on here and curving around the lake. It looks very good, but there's nothing happening up here, so there's not really much reason to go up there. So what about if we said we wanted a city there? Can we do that? Well, you can. Let's go back into the GIMP software. And we'll turn our background back on so we can see the island. Now what I need to do now is to add another layer, and on that layer, that's where I'm going to draw the cities. So same as before, right click in here, say new layer. This time it's going to be called cities. Okay, I'll make sure I'm on the cities layer, and then we're going to start painting in some cities. So as with the biomes, the cities also have their own color codes. Now when I say cities, they're described as cities in the KingGen software, but it also covers towns and villages. So let's start with a big city right in the middle of the map here. So we need a color code for that. Go back, I'm still on the paintbrush. If I click on the color here, and the color code for cities is just straight blue, so it's 00255. That's easy to remember. Okay, that. Make sure I'm on the cities layer. I am, and I'm just going to draw roughly the shape of the city that I want. It doesn't matter if it goes over the top of the other ones. I think we'll do another city up here, but this time it's going to overlap. And then possibly another one down there. Now it's starting to get a little bit confusing, all the blotches, so what you can do is you could turn off the biomes once you can see what you're doing. So there's our map, and that's where we specified that to be cities. Make sure I'm still on the cities layer, and we'll try drawing in some towns this time. So the code for towns is just solid green, so that one's easy as well. That's 0255 and 0. Hit enter. Okay, and we'll have a town along here, along the coast. We might have a town on that island, and let's draw another town along the coast here. Now it's the same thing if you want to draw villages, but I'm just going to skip that because what I'd like to try next is to show you how you can specify not to have any POIs at all. Now that includes the ones that randomly spawn in the wilderness. If you wanted to, we could specify that a certain stretch of this doesn't have any POIs. So what I think would be fun would be if we went back to the biomes and said that this stretch of desert here had nothing in it. So I'm going to make sure I'm on the cities layer, and I'm going to change the color to the no POIs color, which is another easy one. It's 25500. It's just solid red. Okay, and then I'm going to paint over the top of this desert a line so I know that there won't be any POIs in this section. Alright, so now we're ready to export our cities map. Let's turn off the biomes, turn off the background, and we're left with this lovely piece of artwork. Same as with the biomes map, we go to File and Export As. Give this one a name, so this is Test Cities. Click Export. Make sure it's still on 16 RGB, and then just say Export. Let's go back to the KingGen software and Advanced Settings. And now we're going to add the Custom Cities map. And there it is. Click open, go back again, and then say generate world. So we can see straight away that it's done exactly what we asked it to do. It's placed the large city here, another one up there, and then it's done the towns down the sides. And we can also see that it's networked everything together with a series of roads, which is really useful. I think perhaps this area is a little bit too small to fit a town on it. I should maybe have chosen village. So all that's left to do now is to move this map into 7 Days to Die and try it out. I showed you in the last video how to import this into 7 Days to Die, but I'll just show you again in case you've cut straight to this one. So we go to Open KingGen Worlds. There's the one that I've just created now. I'm going to right click on it and say cut. I'll come out of there. If I go to Open 7 Days to Die Worlds, and if I right click in here and say paste, I'm just going to rename that one so we don't mix it up. I'll change that to KingGen Test, and then we'll load up 7 Days to Die. So we're in 7 Days to Die now, and I'm going to the KingGen Test world. I'm just calling it Test, and then I'll say Start. Give it a second to load. And here we are on the map. Now let's have a look at where we are. I'm going to use the DM tools to switch on fly mode. There we go. And let's just see. So we're in the snow section. There's the little mountain that we drew. And you can see where the snow is cut across the landscape. And then we've got the transition, a green area into that desert. And then we specified not to have any POIs. Now obviously there's going to be a little bit of overlap, but I think you can see that there are no POIs through this section where we told it. And we can see over there, there's one of the lakes that was surrounded by the burnt biome. So there you have it, a hand-drawn height map, and with hand-drawn biomes and even hand-drawn cities. So you can still go on from here, and you could download height maps from the internet of other countries or even worlds that you can find and import those into the software. Now they are a little bit harder to work with because you haven't got full control over exactly where the ground level is or where cities will spawn. So there is a technique that I've worked out that does work very well. If you're interested in seeing something like that, then let me know in the comments and I'll happily do a tutorial on that. Well, I hope you found this one useful, and if you have, I would appreciate a like and subscribe to my channel to find similar videos to this and Let's Plays of 7 Days to Die and Ark and a few other games. Thanks very much for watching. See you later. Bye bye.